So this is the latest film from Oscar-winning director Emerald Fennell, who I've been a hater of for her last two films for good reasons. I think that she is a good director, but not a good writer, and she's always writing her own projects. But I do think she has good vision and a good eye for cinema. She just needs to work with someone who can write a little bit better. This is the umpteenth version of Wuthering Heights. It has been adapted over 35 times. There's literally over 100 years of adaptations of this property in both film and TV. And so what we get is something that's a little bit, what I'm calling the way The Shining book and movie are vastly different things. That's what this is a little bit. It takes the premise of Wuthering Heights, which I'll get into in a little bit, that some of us know, and we get about the first third of the book, and then it starts to divulge into a kind of romantasy fan fiction, which is not a derogatory phrase. It's just the way I'm describing it at this point. Some people have had a big problem with it. I have said you have to critique the movie as it is, not the one that you wish that it was. And Emerald Fennell has been very clear in saying this is not a direct adaptation. It's not like a one-to-one period piece. It's kind of just taking inspiration from there. So to recap our story, a young Catherine Earnshaw, or the Earnshaws are landed gentry in 1840s, the Yorkshire moors. They are a wealthy-ish family, but kind of on the brink to maybe being not so. The father brings home a young urchin, Heathcliff, played by the great Owen Cooper, who recently won an Emmy for Adolescence. He's adopted into the family, but not like a full member. He's essentially a farmhand, a slave is a better term probably. So him and Catherine develop a friendship, develop this lifelong kind of love for each other, but they can never be together because of class, and in the book, apparently race, which we'll talk about more later. Eventually, Catherine marries for money to the great Edgar Linton, who lives next door, who's bought the estate next door. Heathcliff runs away, returns many years, having become a rich man himself. And that's kind of where things would begin to diverge. But the movie is incredibly stylistic. She's taken a lot of interesting things. I was hooked from the opening scene. I was really surprised. I was like, oh man, she's got me. She's got me early. And then it went on from there. So that's what our setup, a whole lot to talk about. Zach, what do you think?
So I kind of liked Wuthering Heights. And I feel like I was surprised coming out of the theater to see such visceral responses to it. Because people really did not like this movie. And it's like, I didn't like Emerald Fennell's last two movies. Their last two movies, I was lulled in. It's a stupid Tina Fey meme from that podcast, right? Like I was lulled in by like the wonderful visuals of Lena Sandgren's cinematography and this wonderful casting of these characters she's got in her last two movies, Promising Young Woman and Saltburn. And then the third act gets weird and psychosexual, and I'm not into it, and it's gross. Wuthering Heights just opens with that scene. It just opens with a scene that's very challenging and descriptive and graphic of what sounds like a man who may be fornicating or having some kind of sex, and then it turns out he's actually like hanging from a noose and gasping for air. And then we get a bunch of kids who are making fun of him and the weird boner the guy's got, and then it cuts to like, welcome to hell, we're all sinners here. What Wuthering Heights, Warner Brothers presents. You know what I mean? It's this film that's like in this weird Tim Burton sort of hell where no one ever really gets out and no one ever really comes in. Like we are out on the moors. We never really break out of that. And everybody in it is an absolute monster. Everyone sucks. Everyone's bad. Everyone's abusive. Everyone's terrible. And I haven't seen a lot of movies like that this year. And I think it's a perspective that I wasn't expecting. Like I walked in thinking this is going to be the greatest love story ever told. And I came out thinking like, that was fucked up and weird. And I kind of liked it in a way that I didn't think I was maybe, I don't know. I didn't expect. And if that was the intention, it worked. But if you're coming in for a Wuthering Heights adaptation, I think you will be sorely disappointed because it almost isn't one. Like it is closer to an original script than it is a Wuthering Heights adaptation. It's got some large problems. We should talk about adaptation and what that means, but where do you want to go? Plot? You want to dig into like what's here on the screen or what's off the screen? Because I feel like those are the two things we have to address in this review.
Yeah, let's start with what's on screen. So it starts like a very normal looking period piece, and this opening scene with this hanging is really intense because at one point the crowd is cheering. Young Catherine Earnshaw is like, yeah, this guy's about to die. And then the Charlie XCX score comes pumping in. And I was hooked. I was like, man, this like she's cooking from the beginning. And it starts to look normal, but then it very clearly kind of diverts from that in its visual style. When we get to when we see the Earnshaw house, it like looks very modern, and it's like in these mountains, which, you know, geographically doesn't make sense. And this at this point is where, you know, you're in kind of a fantasy world. Yes. But the house just doesn't look, it's not a period house. And there's lots of things eventually. And the longer it goes, the more fantastical it begins to look. It begins to take on a very kind of fairy tale look, reminding me of there's allusions to Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, Little Red Riding Hood, these kinds of things. And again, the longer it goes, the more stylistic it gets, the more Baroque. Like there's, you might have seen these things where the floor in the Linton household is just bright red, this waxy red, and so is her dress. It's just these popping colors, and it just gets more and more intense the longer it goes. And this is the thing that I think really hooked me and that I didn't expect from the way it started, is that it goes completely into fantasy world very, very soon. And it does with the story as well. In the, from what I understand in the book, our two leads their love is never really requited. They like hold hands once, maybe share a kiss. In this, it's a whole passionate thing. They get together a whole lot. But the visual language of the film I thought was really interesting, and it really grabbed me from the beginning.
Yeah, the cinematography is obviously a notable part of her films. Lena Sandgren is currently shooting Dune 3. He's taken over for Greg Fraser. Before that, he shot like La La Land and First Man and Babylon with Damien Chazelle. He shot Emerald Fennell's films. So like these films obviously have a very big, bold look. I've seen some people criticize the lighting. I've seen people criticize the set design. I think those are both probably fair. There was a good chunk of Act 2 in here where like a lot of the Wuthering Heights like household, Catherine Earnshaw's like home where her father is like gross, and like the tiles all glossy and it's dark, so it's kind of hard to see. But then you break into the Linton's like estate, right? Like the neighbors who move in down the street, and she learns about Mr. Linton, who she kind of is interested in, and figures that he'll probably be her suitor because that's how this works in this crazy world. And when you finally get a look at their place, it's like an alien planet. It's like all of this like wealth and stuff brought in from around the world, and all of these butlers, and they've got fancy wigs, and they have these fancy teacups, you know. And then you get into like the house, and there's like this incredible fireplace with these like plaster hands and stuff, and like you said, this like red reflective floor, insane gowns. The costume design is not, it's this getting a costume design nod for sure. Come 2026 Oscars. Like the Charlie XCX score is bumping. It doesn't work for everybody. And also the buildings look crazy. The buildings look nuts. There's a couple shots of like establishing shots of buildings in here that I laughed at because they look so goofy and weird. But also like outside of that opening scene in the town square, Catherine Earnshaw never escapes this world. She never goes into town. She never gets on a boat. She is trapped between the Moors and the Linton and the Earnshaw states. That's it. That's the whole damn movie. So as far as I can tell, we're in hell, right? This is effectively hell. Like there is nowhere else. This is all we have. So when she develops this relationship with Heathcliff, which is kind of a little incestuous and a little weird. They're kind of like brother and sister, but not really. And there's this thing where she gave him his name, which is new and isn't in the book as I understand it. Like that feels weird and strange. And then when they discover like fornicating, when they stumble onto like a couple of servants getting it on in the stables with some wild S&M stuff in there, that's where it starts to get twisted. Because in this world of absolute pain, of where like everything sucks and everyone's a monster and everyone's abusive, there's only like one warm moment. There's only one warm thing you can have, and it's this like intimacy that you share with somebody else, and that's where you get yearning, which is like 2/3 of this movie. They're just they are so hot for each other, but for some reason can't make it happen. I've heard a lot of people say this movie's a whole lot of edging. It's kind of true for sure. It's like Saltburn does that as well. Promising Young Woman kind of does that as well. Like, yeah, that's definitely a lot of what's going on here. That's a criticism. I don't know. I can't really resolve, but you know, that's in the script, I guess.
I want to move on to cast and talk about our performances. So to round out our cast, of course, the great Margot Robbie as Catherine, Jacob Elordi as Heathcliff, Hong Chau as Nellie, her friend / maid, Shazad Latif as Edgar Linton, and Alison Oliver as Isabella. Alison Oliver, who was also in Saltburn, she was a blonde in that way. That's why I didn't recognize her.
Yeah.
And Martin Clunes plays Mr. Earnshaw, who's a kind of a combination of both the father and brother character from the book. So starting with our leads, I actually think our leads aren't great. Particularly Margot Robbie feels a little miscast. She warmed to me the longer it went, but the beginning stuff, like she's kind of doing Barbie a lot of the time, and she's just not like, she's not nasty enough to be convinced. Like, because everyone in the movie is kind of nasty. Yes. And I just don't buy it from Margot Robbie's character a lot of times. The other thing, people have complained about the age, because in the book they're teenagers, they start, and it's kind of, they grow older, and so we have a much older cast for our leads. I don't care about that. It works for me. You could have done maybe like you had the child versions. You could have had a young adult versions or teen versions, and then gotten your stars. I think Jacob Elordi is doing a good job as Heathcliff. He's super tall. He's like 6'6", and again, he's the romantasy guy. There's a part where he comes in, he walks in a window, and he's like dripping wet because of the rain, and then takes off his shirt. And I was like, this is total, like, again, romantasy book kind of stuff. But he's good. Everyone else is really pretty solid. I'm a little shaky on the Margot Robbie of it all.
Romantasy and like litfic is incredibly popular right now. You see this in bookstores, right? Like there's a big comeuppance of this kind of stuff. We see this in shows like Bridgerton. On this very podcast, we have had success with reviews of like rom-com movies. Materialist last year was one of the best performing reviews we've ever done on the channel. So there's clearly an audience for this, and seeing the box office numbers for Wuthering Heights pulling over $80 million opening weekend, it couldn't be more obvious that like people want this. People want a bit of this energy, right? The question is, do they want what Emerald Fennell is offering, right? Because she's not offering sexy sex. She's offering kinky, painful, kind of hurts, but also kind of lovely sex. And that's a lot of what's happening in here. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's odd. And it's consistent through all three of her films, along with like issues of class, right? As somebody pointed out that all three of her films like have somebody who's kind of poor, who's like a kind of devilish, working their way up the social ladder in some fashion, right? Who's like doing something kind of evil to get there. And I think that's where Robbie's character kind of struggles, because I haven't read Wuthering Heights, but without, as I understand it, this brother character who is like very central to the novel, the movie doesn't really have a villain. So it needs one. And it kind of ends up being Catherine. And she ends up split in this place where you want to be sort of the lead, right? One half of the whole here, but also motivate the plot and this plight that our characters experience. You know, the tagline drive me mad or come undone like feels very appropriate, because that's exactly what these characters are doing. They're driving each other crazy for all the wrong reasons, and a lot of those reasons feel unmotivated or motivated poorly. You know what I mean? It's a lot of he said, she said. Oh, I just didn't hear that you said this thing through the door and thought you said something else, so that's why in Act 3 I'm still mad at you about this stupid thing that the audience knows didn't matter. Like, it's a lot of that. And I think that is a clunky part of this adaptation. Like, Fennell has talked about how this is how she felt reading the book when she was like 14. And so what she's going for here is a vibes movie. So it was one of the things we really compliment about Saltburn, right? Immaculate vibes. The vibes are on, but the substance is a little lacking. And I think because the title is Wuthering Heights, and because it's supposed to be Wuthering Heights, and because Warner Brothers market is Wuthering Heights, with a clever set of quotations around it, which is supposed to like give them a pass for any real criticism here, there are so many readers walking into this movie with an expectation, with an idea of what it's going to be. For guys, like you said, 35 adaptations. The tagline of the movie is the greatest love story ever told. Like, they are acting like this is something really big and familiar. But from what I hear, Wuthering Heights is a revenge story. It's not a love story. And like, that is a fundamental misunderstanding in I don't know, in what the audience thinks and what Emerald Fennell thinks this should be, along with Elordi, who is not a person of color, which I hear Heathcliff was, and is a really big deal. Like, that is not something she seems to care about. Like, she just does not, that has not slowed her down at all. And quickly, because I got to stop talking here, but regarding the casting, Robbie is older. I think she's 35. Elordi is in his 20s, right? Like, I like that it flips this cinematic script. She talked a lot about in interviews, like kind of attributes to previous versions of the film, tributes to previous Hollywood old history. The posters got the Gone with the Wind pose, Elordi holding Robbie over, and it's like flipping the script on the idea of like Clark Gable and Scarlett O'Hara, right? Rather than having your old Hollywood man, leading man, and then your very young starlet, like it does the opposite of that. And I didn't mind that. The movie opens with a guy hanging with a boner. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of figured that's what I just figured that's what we were all signing up for. I was like, okay, this is the world we're in. We're doing it. Welcome to Jackass.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, it's a perfect time to talk about controversies. And again, a whole lot of people immediately, their first thing is, well, in the book, and again, I've said you have to critique the movie you got, not the movie you wanted to get. You can observe that there are differences, and like I said, it strays wildly, but you got to appreciate what is and isn't being done. Again, it's kind of an old Hollywood thing where it used to not matter if things were if the characters were the right ages. It's like, as long as they were famous, and that's kind of what's happening here as well. I don't mind it. My problem with Margot Robbie is more that she's doing Barbie a lot of times, and that she's just not nasty enough, because she's generally always playing like a good character. So I don't see her as like, I just don't buy it quite as much. Again, but some of the controversy has been like in the book, Heathcliff is supposed to be Romani / a person of color. Definitely like an outsider, a foreigner, not someone who's welcome. And that's part of the whole thing. It's a discussion about class and how there's some barriers you can't cross, even if you do become wealthy. And, the book is about race and about class. And Emerald Fennell is not interested in either of those. I think she's very specifically not making commentary. Even if she's definitely not interested in talking about race. She's definitely not really interested in talking about class either. Like, she just wants to make a fun, horny movie where two hot, famous people make out and paw each other the whole time. And that's what we got. And a lot of people are enjoying it, and a lot of people are mad about it.
I know. I think the movie's biggest hurdle is its title, like Wuthering Heights. And like I said, like, there's quotations around it that you might have read about. They're like, well, that makes a difference. But like, dude, this is Warner Brothers, man. Like, these are the people who put out Wicked Part 1 and just left off the Part 1 off the title. And your mom went and saw it and was like, oh, I thought it was going to be both parts. These are the people who put out Dune Part 1 and left Part 1 off the title. They're not in the business of informing you. All right. They're in the business of selling tickets. Like, and Wuthering Heights sells tickets. Like, so that's what that is. And for people who are going in and are misled, like, this isn't what I wanted, I'm just like, I totally hear you, but like, I didn't know anything about it and went in just blind and came out thinking like, wow, this is a weird, fucked up movie. I had a great time. And then I got online and was like, oh God, everybody hates this. 1 star. What do you mean? Like, Elordi smoking his pipe? Hot. Margot Robbie creeping on people.
Drenched in rain. Yeah.
Weird, but kind of hot. You know what I mean? I do want to say, people have said it doesn't go far enough for an R rating. There ought to be a lot more, dick. And I think that's probably valid. I hear you. That's true. The set design doesn't work for everybody, for sure. The soundtrack kicks, the gowns kick. It looks pretty good. I don't know. It reminds me of like a B Tim Burton movie, right? Or a little bit of like Poor Things, like Yorgos Lanthimos. Not as good, for sure not as good as those movies, but like getting there. And this is her 3rd feature, so as far as we can tell, this is kind of the space she wants to live in. Things that are kind of about class and are kind of horny, but also scorn the idea of intimacy a little bit. Like, I don't know. I don't know exactly what she's trying to say, but like, she's clearly got a style. She's got something here that works. And I think out of her 3 features, this is the one where I'm starting to see that the most. Like, okay, you told me from Jump Street, from the opening frame, this is going to be weird, gross, nasty. And then it was, and it was like, well, that's what you told me. Like, so I didn't feel particularly misled. I don't know.
Yeah, it has a lot of almost music video vibes, especially when the Charlie XCX score comes in, which I've been listening to that album. I've really enjoyed that. It's obviously very anachronistic. But yeah, she's going for vibes. And like I said, I saw it in a full theater. I saw people of all ages. I saw older couples, younger couples, people my same age. The two girls, there were these two young women next to me who had read the book, and they were like gasping and like covering their mouths like every like 10 minutes. And it's
Yeah.
like, that's why you go to the movies, man. You want to be excited and surprised and shocked, and people were laughing at the different parts that were humorous. Like, it was totally working.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of stuff in here that works. Even stuff that people have said like this is gross and doesn't work. You got a chick on a chain barking like a dog. Like, I'm into it. It's great. Why not? Throw it against the wall. You know what I mean? You got Jacob Elordi riding off into the sunset against this blood red sky. Do it. Go for it. Like, it doesn't all work. It's so different from the book. And I haven't read the book, but like everything I've heard about the book, all the criticism I've seen, everybody's like, it gets it so wrong. And I totally see that. I almost wish it wasn't called Wuthering Heights. I wish it was just something else and she changed a couple names and just said, it's inspired by, it reminds me of. That would have been a better service, I think, for selling the film. But this is what we got. This is Wuthering Heights, Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights. And I don't know. Any other thoughts, recommendations?
I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights?
Yeah, I would. It was a big surprise. I really enjoyed it, and I didn't expect to. Our leads are fairly strong. Again, it's not an authentic or accurate representation of the book. It veers wildly about halfway through. It's more in the literary fiction, romantasy, hot people yearning after each other, pawing at each other in beautiful style and gowns and all that. I saw it with a big crowd, loved it. So I would definitely recommend it if you're interested in it.
Yeah, I had fun in Wuthering Heights. Wuthering Heights is a terrible movie about horrible people who are awful to each other all of the time. And I had a great time in it. And I haven't read the book. And I think, for people who did and don't want that, bad news for you. This is not the adaptation for you. But if you're looking for something really strange, let me tell you, Wuthering Heights is great. Don't take your parents to go see Wuthering Heights. This is not a movie to see with the folks, for sure. Maybe take an intimate friend of yours, I think, at best. Or some friends you can laugh at it with. That's Wuthering Heights. Man, we got to move on to some upcoming trailers. A couple quick ones this week. What do we call this segment, Andy?
It's time for the trailer park. So our first trailer is this is actually a TV thing that we're going to review, which this might be the first time we've done a TV trailer. Spider Noir.